Okay, so I am just looking at some weapons to see if I can find something that I can upgrade into. There's some pretty interesting stuff in here. This one's pretty good. It's extremely expensive and probably shouldn't be nearly that expensive for what it's giving. But the Angel's Gnarled Staff. Plus one of Sorceress skills is extremely good in probably a mid or late game aspect, especially as you approach maybe like Nightmare or something like that. It's not very good at this point in the game because I'm really only using 2 or 3 spells at this point. It's still good. It's just maybe not as good as like a focused, bonus damage to say Fireball or Charge Bolt to just kind of clean something up to kind of force one stat to be better. There is one in here that I might be worth buying, though I'm under leveled for it. Is 5 mana per kill. So that is extremely good. And I don't know that that can even spawn outside of the staves. So I don't think 5 mana can spawn on, like, say, these wands. At least not at that level, probably. There's some different things in here. There's Enchant, there's Blaze, 15 to mana. There's one in here, I think that was like... was it? There was one that was like 100 to mana or something. Maybe I am not seeing it. Maybe I'm blind. 53 to mana. That's pretty good. That's a 30% bonus to where I'm at, basically. 25 to 30%, somewhere in between there. And so, yeah, it's pretty good. Doesn't help me, and it's way too expensive. So I definitely need to rein in some of the expenses on this, especially since I've changed how gold works. I want the whole gold system to be a little flatter. It's still meant to be expensive, but things don't sell for the values that you'd expect them to sell, like in the original game. And if I can flatten out what items cost, I can also flatten out what items sell for a little bit too. So like, instead of 48,000, maybe this costs, I don't know, 10,000 or 15,000 or 7,000, but not 70,000. Not an Act 2. That's just a little excessive. I mean, I have 18,000 to my name, and filling up my potions or something else. So potions actually cost a little bit more in general as well. Not too much. I don't remember them being that cheap, but yeah, so looks like this character is actually giving me a discount because I completed the previous quest. There's a bunch of those kind of hidden discounts for like 10% discount. So it does look like I'm getting a 10% discount on all this, but like the base healing potion is 45. So yeah, or well, 50, but 45 with the discount. So something I will probably be doing in the future is there are some one-off items like the bone shield, the bone helmet, the spike shield, things like that. I may actually end up doing something a little bit unique with those. I want to avoid doing it to too many items. I don't want to be Path of Exile where every item has kind of a built-in modifier. But I do think it'd be interesting to have a handful of items to have some built-in modifiers as kind of just a unique, like I say, I call them one-off abilities, where a design is just kind of it's just off the beaten path. It's just a little bit different. It's isolated to this one item. One-off is a common term in programming, though I'm kind of butchering its usage here. But I like to talk about one-off mechanics occasionally. I am going to actually buy this 5 mana staff. Can't use it for a little while. Yeah, a long while. First of all, I just want to talk about this staff before I get into the whole one-off mechanic thing. This staff is level 20. I don't like level requirements on items. I understand as a design, that's why they're there. That's necessary. Diablo 2, as far as I'm aware, does not allow you to limit things on, say, like energy level or things like that. I can't remember if a game does do this, but there is the idea that an item could have a level requirement or a stat requirement so that you could do one or the other instead of having to wait till level 20. It could be level 20 for any character, and it could be something like... That seems really loud for some reason. Let's do this. That still seems really loud. Let's turn it down just one notch there. Gem Shrine. I didn't even like look at it before I collect it, but these are fun. Gem Shrines are really rare. They'll upgrade a random gem in your inventory. If you only have one, it'll upgrade that one. So it guarantees an upgrade. And if you don't have anything, or if the only thing you have to upgrade is quite literally a perfect gem, it'll just give you a chipped gem. That could be good if it was actually rolled with something. So one-off mechanics. I consider one-off mechanics to be actually extremely healthy for a lot of games. I'm going to, so in my usage of this term, I'm going to compare it to, say, StarCraft 1. Primarily StarCraft 1. Played a lot of StarCraft 2 back in the day. I wasn't very good. Somewhere in gold tier or something, and I was able to play like random or something. But my favorite class, or race, if you will, in StarCraft is the Zerg. And one of the things I really enjoy about the Zerg, and they all have this, but each race in StarCraft has kind of this one-off mechanic where they do something different from everybody else. And so the Zerg's one-off mechanic is the use of larvae and drones. You need larvae to create drones, you need drones to create buildings, and you need larvae to create your army. So every building that you create is the cost of a drone. Well, you always generally have a handful of drones on hand. But if you build a lot of buildings, especially right away, defense or whatnot, you're losing your workers, and then you have to use larvae to build them back up. Now, in StarCraft 1, a hatchery or lair or whatnot, the main hub of your base, would auto-generate these larvae. And you didn't have to do anything for it. There was no manual injection or auto-injection of like a queen that later came in StarCraft 2. And if you wanted more larvae, you had to build more hatcheries. And I actually really liked this. I know for StarCraft 2 they tried to make this as streamlined as possible, but I actually really liked this because it meant that you were actually very limited. And Zerg units were extremely efficient in StarCraft 1 because of this. Zerglings did crazy amounts of attack speed and damage and stuff like that. Oh, my game just lagged. That was weird. But this is a one-off mechanic, or it's what I call a one-off mechanic, where the Zerg do something extremely different from, well, most RTSs, but also from the other, so to say, classes or races in the game. Now you get over to the Protoss, and they summon their buildings in. So their workers not only are not consumed, their workers can go right back to work. I don't know where I'm going. I'm going left. I also just need the levels here. So we're just kind of getting some levels. We're getting some stuff here. Do I want this? I'll just keep going. I'll keep going chargeable. Let's swap to this one. And it might be wise to throw an amethyst into this short staff. I'm getting low on attack rating here. I'm actually going to put some into health. thought it was over here. Where was it? We found it yesterday. Ah, it's on the top side. It is on the left side. It's just on the top side of the left side. So one-off mechanics. Yeah. Protoss don't lose their workers. Their workers can go right back to work. But their buildings are more expensive in some ways. And everything builds slower. Their buildings build slower. Outside of, I think, the spawning pool, a lot of the Zerg buildings actually build quite quickly because you have to offset the time. Well, you don't have to, but there is a sort of a free time offset due to the cost of the worker that is being consumed. There's also a cost offset, if you will. So the spawning pool in StarCraft 1 is probably one of the most expensive buildings in the game, especially at that point in the game. It's also one of the slower buildings in the game for balance. I think that came later in like patch 8 or something of StarCraft 1. To offset the fact that you could get workers out, or not workers, minions out, units or whatever, and have a relatively decent army almost instantly. Because as soon as you build that building, that spawning pool, you can have 4 or 6 Zerglings popping out pretty quick. And again, a lot of this was specifically kind of prorated for the Zerg, so that, come on, die. There we go. Oh, I found a rune. Finally, that's my first rune the entire run, which is super weird. Didn't do Countess, but still. But anyways, I really like those kind of mechanics. Diablo 2, I think, is kind of rife with them. I was kind of talking about that last time with Energy Shield. Energy Shield is kind of this one-off mechanic for the Sorceress in the same way. It allows you to avoid or change an aspect of your character in Diablo. Naturally, in a game like StarCraft, this is not something you're choosing. It is baked in. It is preset. You're not really capable of doing much with it. I mean, you can build more hatcheries, like I said, and I actually enjoyed that kind of play style. So I only did one level here. I got a better entrance this time from restarting here. But these enemies are still quite annoying. They revive. Looks like I've got a decent hit chance. I wish leveling up wasn't necessary to hit things in this game. I don't have a problem with like leveling up and you gain like 5 attack rating or something, but then you're still using the attack rating system. But in Diablo 2, you are leveling up and using a formula. And the formula is your attack rating divided by the sum of your attack rating and the defender's defensive rating, or armor class, in Diablo 2 terms. Come on. Oh, jeez. That hurt. I don't know what that was. This is death bolts, I think. Like holy bolt, but not holy. No, get off me. Okay, maybe we can kill the ones up here instead. Yeah, there we go. Oh, he's lightning enchanted. That's what's hitting me. Closer I am to him, he's gonna hit me harder. Sadly. There we go. Yeah, no kidding. Let's get some potions in here. So I've done no editing since the previous video. Just to put that out there. Let me rephrase that. I have done no balance changes in this build. I've been working a little bit here and there after every video to just kind of make some notes and see what I need to fix. But I haven't actually fixed anything. I've just kind of made the notes, and I've kind of done some fixes on, so to say, the back end, but the data hasn't been imported or finished either. So we're just playing as it is. So we're going to see, like, we're still going to get the higher level potions, which are not intended to be here. We're still going to see potentially some bad rolls on items that just should not exist. So, like, I don't even care. I'm actually not even going to carry this. But some known issues are just like things costing too high a level, or not rolling what they should at lower levels. So like we're not finding a whole lot of items with, say, a plus to life, which would be really helpful. With the changes to life and mana, you get, in this build at least, you get 1.5 mana per energy or magic, as I call it. And you get 3 life per vitality. Now, the 3 life per vitality is a huge buff to heroes or characters like the Sorceress, or you would think it would be. Except for when you spawn into the game, the Sorceress only has 10 vitality, and I'm not giving her anything extra. There's no base health. It's just vitality times your stat value. So you're spawning in with 30 health. This character actually only spawned in with 20 health because I didn't fix the base stats. I only fixed the attributes at the time. I didn't realize it until I was 2 videos in. Kind of recording these back to back a lot of the time. Not this one, but some of the other ones just kind of back to back to back. So this character started off with too much mana and too little health, and I just rolled with it. That'll be fixed. I've noticed I've been getting a lot of comments on the first video. The patch notes are not exhaustive, but I think I will be doing kind of an overview patch note and then a more exhaustive version that can be kind of linked to, so you can go to specific topics or numbers. It's just going to take me some time to sort through what the original document's like over 40 pages long. A lot of it's just personal notes and changes I've made over the past 2.5 years that I've been working on this mod. I've mostly just kind of worked on this mod, played it a little bit, and then worked on it again like 6 months later. Just done a run or two through normal and then come back to it. But especially for the fact that I'm sharing this on YouTube, I've decided to kind of have a little bit more of a focus towards finishing the mod and actually having a goal in mind. It's not just a perpetual mod anymore. Flying scimitars. I think that has a special sound to it. I don't think I've ever noticed that sound before. Like a parry sound with the scimitar. Kind of neat. So something I'll need to fix is I made arrows infinite, so they need to stop dropping from the pool. Like they basically should be never dropped. They should basically be free. If they're gonna be infinite, that's how they need to be. So even if they maybe drop occasionally, it might be okay, but they need to be extremely rare. And it is possible for me to make arrows magical, and I might do that. I've done that in the past. It's pretty fun. It can kind of be glitchy sometimes, if I recall. But if I can get them to be magical again, maybe that's a good goal. They'd be more utility, like stamina or movement speed, maybe attack speed or damage. Just a little bit, you know. And I know Path of Exile does that kind of stuff. I really enjoy that in Path of Exile, but then it gets kind of, I don't know, excessive maybe. So I'd probably limit the arrows to maybe, I don't know if I'd limit them to magic only, because then that they become a one-off. They become a weird exception to the rule. Okay, let's be very careful with this room. Very careful with this room. I am cursed with amplify damage. So if they hit me, they do double damage. There we go. Blood Ruby. Rejuve Potion. Let's just use that. I will probably be removing full rejuves from this mod. So you'll be able to hold regular rejuvenations, but not full rejuvenations. They just won't exist. Haven't done that yet. A lot of things I'm just kind of still coming up with for goals and stuff. Okay. Die? Couldn't hit him. The things were going in the wrong direction. Okay, we'll go talk to Kane here real quick, and he'll tell us about something else. We're level 16, so we can't use that staff quite yet. But the changes to the health and mana, I feel like they're actually pretty good. I'm probably going to be making mana 2 per stat, and life will be 3 per stat, and just kind of leave it at that. This is kind of more of an average of all classes together. So the Sorceress, I believe, originally got 3 per stat. This means that she's going to be more mana intensive, especially with the increase in cost on at least early spells and stuff. It also nerfs Energy Shield. I know I've talked a lot about Energy Shield recently. Energy Shield has a ratio of mana to damage taken, and by adjusting Energy Shield, in this way, then it does actually nerf it. But I want Energy Shield to kind of stand alone. That's not very useful. What are we searching for? It's been a year since I played this game again. Agate Lair is in the Far Oasis, and the Claw Viper Temple in the Viper Place. Valley of the Snakes. So one of the things I want to do with the Sorceress as well, since I'm playing the Sorceress, I'll talk about the Sorceress a little bit more focusedly, if I can. Fire Mastery, Lightning Mastery, and Cold Mastery. Originally, all these do is amplify damage. But one of the things I think that is very valuable in a game with skill cards, or what I'll call skill cards. Let's see, what does the Elrune do? Attack rating. Sure, let's do it. There we go. I would like to see more games do this. we see games, and I'm going to call out Diablo 3 a little bit for this. I enjoyed Diablo 3. It's not my favorite Diablo by any means. It's just different. It's simplified. It's a lot of things that I didn't really want out of a Diablo game, but I still put multiple hundreds of hours into it and did enjoy it to some degree, and built many characters, at least once of every different class. So I'm not just going to rag on Diablo 3 and say it's the worst game ever, but I am going to say it wasn't what I wanted out of a Diablo game. It was a nice ARPG. It just didn't feel very Diablo to me. But one of the things that got kind of weird or excessive to me was the focus on percentage damage elemental stuff, where you wanted to have like 20 or 30 or 40% to fire damage because it was a multiplier against all your other damage bonuses. And your critical strikes and stuff like that. And I've never really looked at Diablo as this game where... And Grim Dawn does this way worse, by the way. Grim Dawn does this way worse. But in the sense of elemental damage, spam, itemization. Beetle Burst, please go away. Everything hurts way too much. Well, that is okay. There we go. We triggered that quest. Not intentionally, but we did. But when I think about a game like Diablo, even Diablo 1 had like plus to skill levels. It was different than Diablo 2, but it was there. Well, I think there was some that was exactly like Diablo 2, but a lot of it I think was more towards like the actual staff charges and stuff like that. And a lot of the skills in Diablo 1 scaled off of attributes or player level. They followed you through the game. They weren't just damage, 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 damage. They, fireball. They actually increased in velocity, projectile velocity, as well as everything else as they leveled up. So creating a utility or a safety effect there because, well, you hit faster, kind of. You hit faster from farther away, at least. 4 max damage is actually really good. Faster hit recovery and max stamina. But I'm not using melee or physical damage. So I am a big fan of the idea of using skill cards to their advantage. I see a lot of games do this where it just feels... again, strong personal opinions, but it just feels wrong. You have these skill cards. Let's kill everything in the screen here. We'll show something here. Okay. So let's look at the cold spells. We've got frozen armor. What does it do? It freezes enemies that hit you. It gives you a defensive bonus so that they don't hit you as often. And I think it might freeze even if they don't hit you. It's probably freeze on attack, not freeze on hit. And then it has a duration. And in the original game, you would level it up, and you get defensive bonus and stuff like that. And there were some synergies between the three, and I've removed a lot of that stuff or changed it in different ways. And then you get down to like Cold Mastery. And what does Cold Mastery do? It just makes enemies weaker to cold damage. That's it. And I get this game is like 24 years old. Like that's okay. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get to the point of, is what if, or should, Cold Mastery boost things like the freeze duration on these abilities, or the duration on these abilities, or the defense, or this guy gives resistances now, the defense or resistances on these abilities. Same thing with fire spells. Like Fire Mastery increases the damage, but what if it increased the, size of the meteor, or increased the explosion radius of the fireball, or increased the speed of the velocity of the attack? Then it acts as a true fire mastery. You're mastering the skills that it's attached to. And this can be built into the skill card, either as a kind of a side grade to how it's designed, or the idea that it's basically just leveling up the skill extra. Interestingly enough, Skeleton Mastery actually does do this for Skeleton Mages, where every level of Skeleton Mastery in the base game that did not give an extra summon actually levels up the Skeleton Mage by like 1 level. And every time you level up Skeleton Mage, it also increases by basically 1 level. And so Skeleton Mastery does the same thing as the regular level. Sorry, Skeleton Mage increases summons, where Skeleton Mastery does not. I said that backwards. But they do the same thing. What's interesting is that you get an extra mage, and on the levels, this is in vanilla, unmodded, you get an extra summon for skeletal mages, and it doesn't increase their damage that rank. And so every like 3rd level is just 1 extra. Now, you're getting an extra mage, so that's seen as a value. But there are a lot of other skills, say like, I don't know, Charge Bolt, where you get a Charge Bolt every level, even if it doesn't, even though you're getting it every level, you are simultaneously still getting the extra Charge Bolt and the damage, both. That is surprisingly bad. Well, dual resist isn't terrible, but otherwise surprisingly bad. And so I think it would be a wise or valuable to see more games, Diablo, Dota, anything, just use more skill card oriented design, where you already have these numbers on here. So should Lightning Mastery increase the charge bolts? Why not? Why not? Should it increase Chain Lightning's, bounces? Sure, why not? Should it change Telekinesis knockback effect? Sure, why not? Maybe it knocks back farther. And you can just wrap that up into the skill itself, and it's less of, hey, this amplifies 1 single stat. We see this a lot in, I'm going to use Dota as an example. Modern Dota 2 had a major patch back in 2017 where they added talents. And as far as I'm aware, this was basically just borrowed, stolen straight from Heroes of the Storm, which I actually enjoy Heroes of the Storm. Like, I played on occasion. Those earlier seasons were definitely more fun to me, but it's a pretty well-designed game, especially for what they tried to remove and what they tried to add, differently and stuff. Still prefer Dota 2 over any other, of the genre. But one of the things Dota has done is they've added these talents, and these talents commonly are really bland. Now they're balanced, and that's kind of the idea. Dota is an esport, and Dota is this competitive game, so everything has to be kind of balanced. But part of my understanding or feel of Dota is that everything is unbalanced. Everything has a weakness, everything has a strength. And it feels like when they started adding a lot of the talents, it took away a lot of the weaknesses and strengths and kind of made the game a little more homogenous. But that aside, the real reason I want to talk about it is this whole skill card issue. You have a lot of talents, especially talents at level 10. You get them at level 10, 15, 20, and 25, and it's always a binary choice. You get one or the other. You can get both like super, super late game, but you're not usually going to see those unless you're playing like Dota Turbo. Or the game is just dragging. And you'll get stuff like Ogre Magi. I play a decent amount of Ogre Magi. He's a fun hero. He's really dumb. Literally 0 intelligence now, as of a more recent patch. But Ogre Magi comes onto the scene, and he has a damage over time effect that he can throw at people. And this damage over time effect is a battle staff. Let's 3 to warmth. Poison resistance. Let's do that. Lots of mana regeneration now. Yeah, that's solid. And poison resistance 29%. Seems good. Just need to avoid attacking with it. Prayer chainmail. Don't know what that was. You get Ogre Magi's talent at level 10, and one of the talents is the option of having 15 bonus damage, maximum durability, not that much more damage or defense for 48 strength though. Probably needs to be more defense, but that's just me. You get 15 more damage per second. Now, the normal level ups for Ogre Magi's fire damage, his damage over time effect, gives it 1 second of duration every level. It has 5 seconds, then 6 seconds, then 7 seconds, then 8 seconds. 5, 6, 7, 8. And it gains 10 damage per level as well. This hits 2 targets, then can multicast, his whole gimmick of multicasting. Let's get some of these mana potions out of here. I don't need them as much. But if you have not maxed out this skill at this point in time, you're going to get more damage generally out of leveling up the extra point into the actual skill. So this ends up being kind of weird. Now, it could be 10 extra damage per second and 1 extra second, but at this point in the game, you've already gotten enough duration on it, plus multicast extends the duration every time it hits. So you can go from 8 seconds to 16. A quadruple cast or quad cast will be 32 seconds of dot. That this 15 damage bonus is good, and it is actually probably preferred to an extra second. But if you aren't maxing it out, this is kind of a dead end, and you probably don't want to level it up because you'd rather level up something else. And so I've seen both in regular games as well as pro games where a lot of the level 10 talents, they're good, but they're not good at level 10. Because it's a conflict of value where you would rather do something else. And so like this is where a skill card effect might come in handy, where the talent is effectively just a 5th level. But it's a side grade. It's a side grade 5th level. And maybe it's a bad example. I hope it's not. But the idea would be is, you know, this could augment the ability and show some of that augment within the skill tab, as well as the talent itself. The skill itself also increases in slow per level. This also means that you're not getting any more slow when you level it up on the talent. As a reminder, or as a notice, that talents do cost skill points. So until you're running out of things to level up, around like level 15, level 18 kind of stuff, these skill points are kind of valuable to level up your actual skills. So same thing as like Fire Mastery or whatever. I feel like the skill card effect could be, the skill card design could be better. They're just used better. So that is a goal of mine. I'm planning on doing that. Don't attack with that weapon, please. I cannot hit this thing. I can't walk past it. There we go. That was really obnoxious. So just the idea that skills could do more. If you're going to have a mastery skill, have it do more. Warcraft 3 actually did this really well. Definitely more of a skill card effect, like I'm talking about, where when you're leveling up, say, a priest, you get a new skill. It was a research cost because, you know, it's an RTS game. You get a new skill every time you rank them up. And then you also got health and mana for upgrading them. So they were more combat efficient, even if they were just casters. They'd survive maybe one more hit, which, again, they were casters. Maybe wasn't the most interesting or helpful thing, but one more hit is enough sometimes, you know? And so it was a mastery effect. It affected the entirety of the unit. And it was really well done because it was an RTS. To have an effect like that, I feel, was pretty cool. Now, this doesn't mean that non-card effects are bad. Warcraft 3 definitely had those as well, where you had very specific skills like troll regeneration, or like the knights had a bonus to, was it armor or health? I think they had a high base armor and they had a bonus to health. And so if you got to a level, well, I'll call it tier 3 units, like Tauren or Knight, for the humans, Knights were their tier 3 melee, and you get to that, and I think it added like, man, it's been forever. I think it was like 200 health or something. It was pretty good.
I can't carry anymore.
But they pop out at like, I don't know, 850 health or something, which by itself was pretty good. I don't want to get electrocuted to death, please. Oh, jeez. And this was more of a timing balance thing, similar to how Dota is balancing its stuff. It's really definitely a timing balance thing where they don't want things too early to be too strong. And this is more of a complaint towards Dota 2 than probably anything else right now. But I always found that the talents in Dota 2 were just absolutely boring. So many of them just don't do enough. Or they just feel redundant. Or you know, skippable or something. So for example, if you level up an ultimate, a lot of ultimates, probably 90%, 90% of ultimates in Diablo 2, or excuse me, Dota 2, when you level them up, you get a cooldown effect on the skill. So I mean this as in the skill itself maybe takes 10 or 20 less seconds to be used again, which means that as you move towards the end of the game, you get more value out of your ultimate, even if it's just time. So it doesn't need to necessarily do tons more damage because maybe it has a 20-second cooldown less. So you might go from 140 to 120 to 100. Well, previously it was, a minute and a half almost, and now it's just, or not a minute and a half, 2.5 minutes, 140. And now it's all the way down to 100, which is just a little bit more than a minute and a half. So you've lost 60 seconds of time cost to it. But then you get talents where you might only get another 10 seconds cooldown off of it, or 20 seconds cooldown off of it. And if it's given to the player too soon, it could be seen as too strong. And I just wish it was more interesting than that, because it could be a whole level. You could just have a talent that says levels this up to level 4, something like that, or on the card it can show kind of what that does. Levels this up one extra level. And Aghanim Scepter kind of has done that in the past, where it just kind of levels things up by 1 level. There are still Aghanim Scepters in the game that basically still do this. Dragon Knight's Aghanim Scepter. Played Dragon Knight recently. One of the blandest heroes in Dota, some people will say. I really enjoy the hero personally. I think there should always be, you know, simpler stuff to learn with and hard to master, you know. Dead. Glad I'm not a cold sorceress. That would really suck. Anything useful on the ground? Not really. Get out of here before we get hit by something. The Staff of Kings! Hooray! Let's sell that. Let's sell that. Leveling up Dragon Knight's ultimate. Basically, if you get his Aghanim Scepter, it levels it up to a 4th level. And if you get it early, it levels it up to the normal level earlier. So if you're like level 12, you have Poison Breath and Fire Breath. Basically, you have a damage over time effect on his dragon form. So Dragon Knight is a knight that transforms into a dragon. You get damage over time on the 1st level. You get area of effect or splash damage on the 2nd level. And then you get a slow or frost dragon effect on the 3rd level. If you get the Aghanim Scepter, whether early or later, it gives 1 full level to this ability. But the 4th level has special effects. The 4th level gives bonus damage to his damage over time. It gives extra magic resistance and stuff like that. I think those are the primary things. And it gives non-restrictive movement. You can go over trees and ground and stuff and cliffs and stuff. So you're just constantly like phased through enemies and you're phased through the terrain. So, but it's effectively a skill card. Like that's how it's designed. It does a lot of different things that the skill already does, and then it adds like a little extra on the top with like free pathing and some magic resistance, and it's an overall really good scepter. And I think that scepter has generally gotten the hero kind of nerfed over the past year. That and other things. But it's a good example of what I think more talents in Dota could do, and what more mastery type skills, if I can hit the right button here, like lightning mastery or fire mastery and cold mastery type skills, I think could do more to tie a whole skill tree together. You've probably already heard me in another video rant about how I don't like synergies unless they make perfect direct sense. So Frost Nova doesn't get any bonuses from anything else, because the idea is that you max out Frost Nova if you want to use Frost Nova, you max out Cold Mastery if you want to use anything on this tree. And so the idea would be that this Frost Nova and this Cold Mastery are counterplayed together with each other. You want to max these out because they're so strong together. And the intentional dedication, the investment of 20 points into this and 20 points into that, that's 40 points. Even at max rank, you only get like 110 skill points in this game. Now you can get tons of skill points, so to say, from gear, but you get 110 total actual investment points. And so if you're going to invest 40 skill points to get this up, then there are all sorts of skills in the patch 10 and above system of synergies in Diablo 2 that, in a lot of ways, they negate the masteries. They make a lot of the original design kind of pointless or weak. And they don't allow you to kind of focus on things in the same way. Now, naturally, there's some issues of skills doing kind of almost the same thing, like the shields, the ice armors, and the ice bolt, glacial blast, whatever, glacial spike. And so that kind of stuff is a little redundant, and that is an issue of the combination of two different designs, probably, and kind of two different design teams, if you will. I believe the patch 10 team was a different group of people than the original Diablo 2 team. I think they had kind of moved on. I think some of them stuck around, but I don't think all of them were there. So the people making the rune words, super overpowered, and the people making the synergies, kind of overpowered, were potentially a different set of, I don't know, 15 people or so. Anywho, so like Frost Nova, one of the progression systems, so I love talking about progression curves. One of the progression systems here is that you're leveling up Frost Nova potentially until you hit like level 30 in the original game. And I'm planning on changing all these skill requirements here. So like these will probably be like a level 5 requirement, and these will probably be like a level 10 or something requirement, so that you're getting all your stuff by like level 25, somewhere in like Act 3, basically. Depending on how fast you're moving, you could probably hit 25 in Act 2. But the idea would be that like Frost Nova has a cold length, it has mana cost, it has cold damage, whatever. You get cold mastery, and especially for a more advanced engine, like say Grim Dawn's engine or Path of Exile's engine or something like that, you could do more with this Frost Nova. You could have it become bigger based on your cold mastery. You could have it have a longer cold length based on your cold mastery. So leveling it up might give it a little bit of cold length, but leveling up the mastery might give it more cold length and less damage. You've got kind of two different skill cards going on there. And you don't have to do it purely skill card oriented where it's built into the Frost Nova. You could just have cold mastery say all cold damage is increased and all cold length is increased and whatnot. So one of the things I'm going to do here is, so passive piercing armor, passive resistance piercing has already been code edited in my version, and it now pierces immunities. So if you come up against a cold immune and you have a high level of cold mastery, it will pierce, but it will pierce at the normal rate of say like infinity. Conviction aura is on infinity. And so I think it's like 1/5 until it's broken. So whatever the math is on that, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But so you'd have to have quite a bit of resistance breaking to make that work. So one of the things that makes this special is that cold sorceresses now can break cold. And the idea is that cold damage is more utility oriented, where fire damage might be more burst damage, lightning damage might be more high highs and low lows and stuff like that. Cold damage is more utility oriented and meant to be like lower damage, but it's lower damage. It's also low on mana cost. I didn't actually edit the ice bolt here. I think 3 mana cost is actually the ice bolt cost, and it doesn't go up. And charge bolt does go up, and fire bolt does go up in the base game, but ice bolt I don't think does. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. So you've got some utility stuff going on with like the ice tree that was kind of maybe not discussed or hidden or no one cared about, probably the latter, where a lot of this stuff just didn't increase in cost. Now I think Blizzard and Frozen Orb do increase in cost in the original game. They won't here. But yeah. So something I'm planning on doing with stuff like Cold Mastery and Fire Mastery is I actually think the Sorceress should be the Master of Elements. So I think like Cold Mastery should give like cold resistance. I'm not saying that it should be super powerful, but it would allow the Sorceress to have a mild amount of extra cold resistance if she is a cold sorceress. It's one of those things where I think some of these bonuses should definitely not be front loaded. So it might be like 1 cold resistance per level, and with a diminishing returns formula slapped in there. So it's like 1 per level up to like level 15-ish or 12-ish or something. And it starts diminishing returns. And then, so, you get cold mastery to level 30, which isn't unheard of, especially if you're stacking charms in your inventory and stuff like that, and pretty good gear. You might even get to level 40 of something if you're using all your skill points on it to begin with. So I don't want to give you 40 magic or 40 cold resist, but instead I might give you, say, 20 cold resist, and, just having a single point in it maybe gives you 5 or 10 max cold resist. So you're extra resistant to cold if you can stack it. It might give cold duration built into the synergy system in here, where each one of these has kind of a cold duration. And so you need the cold mastery to max out the actual value of the spells. And because it already pierces resistances, it's highly utilitarian, high utility to ignore immunities if you can get a high enough pierce. So same thing with lightning spells. Lightning damage in lightning mastery. So cold spells, they gain only 20% piercing here, but lightning spells give 50% and fires gives 30%. So again, lightning mastery, the whole point of lightning damage in this game is to have this high variant damage, like 1 to 1,000 and stuff like that. I am going to be shoring up some of the low end because they can now miss the attack rating formula. So like lightning probably shouldn't be 1 to 42 if it can miss. As it was, it always hit, so the low value on the bottom end made sense. But now it makes a lot less sense due to my own changes. And so this spell maybe shouldn't be 1 to 42. It probably still needs to be low on the low end, though. So maybe we say it's 5 to 42 or 8 to 42. I think in the past I've done some calculations at looking at the idea of doing 1/20th of the low damage. So what's 1/20 of 42 or 1/20th? 20%, not 1/20th, 1/5. So yeah, about 8 damage, maybe 8.5 damage. So 8 to 42 instead of 1 to 42, something like that, because it can miss now, right? So, and then same thing with chain lightning. And interestingly enough, thunderstorm, I think actually does scale up its minimum damage by default, if I recall. I know something in here does. I think it's thunderstorm. Let me double check that. Go to a skill calculator here real quick. What's going on? My skill calculator broke. Yeah, so Thunderstorm is one of those spells that actually gets minimum damage for whatever reason. And Chain Lightning and regular Lightning do not. And actually, technically, Charge Bolt does too. In the base game, it's 3 to 6 damage, and you get it all the way to level 20, and it's 23 to 26 damage. So Charge Bolt, actually, the random movement is meant to be kind of offsetting the actual guaranteed damage. 20 to 26 is a really narrow variance there. So on Thunderstorm, you get something like 15 damage a level, but it starts from 1 to 138. And then level 2 gives it like 14 extra minimum damage. So it goes from 1 to 15. So not all the original lightning damages in the base game had a really high variance, but they had some other random effects. So like Thunderstorm hits a random target. Chain Lightning hits random targets, but chains through, if you just have 2 targets, it'll chain back and forth. And then Charge Bolt has random movement and then has higher guaranteed damage. And since there's a ton of bolts in Charge Bolt, it can do a lot. Yeah, so one of the things I'd like to see with like Lightning Mastery is being able to potentially use Lightning Mastery to kind of offset the lows of the skills as well. So I'm not saying that Chain Lightning should do 200 to 300 with a 2 to 3 spread, but instead of 1 to 300, it might do, say, 50 to 300 or 500 to 1,000 or 500 to 2,000, something like that. So those are some of the things I'm going to be doing and changing. Lightning Mastery also Might have something extra in it. I don't know what. I don't want to give attack rating. But it might be interesting to slap something unique into, say, like cold. Cold mastery could have like 50% cold reduction or duration reduction, or if you hit like level 20 on it with hard points, maybe it makes you incapable of being frozen. Something very special that actually isn't that strong on a sorceress since she doesn't attack physically, so the attack speed slow isn't really that important. The movement speed slow is, but not the attack speed slow. Lightning mastery, maybe lightning mastery does something else, like a mild amount of faster hit recovery or something. These are just kind of ideas I'm just spewing out into the ether here, but that's kind of the idea of what some of these things could do. So they're not just simply damage. They're doing something unique, kind of like Dragon Knight's Scepter. He can now walk over walls, or he now gets extra magic resist that wasn't previously part of the skill at all. So anyways, we've gotten back to the inventory. We've gotten the Staff of Kings. We need the amulet, and then we need to put them together. But I have sat here talking for who knows how long, 15 minutes probably. And I want to move on. So we will move on, and we will go get the amulet shortly after a quick commercial break from time itself.